Welcome to today's episode of the I Am Jen Wilson Healing Rebel podcast. I have Chris Tuck on today as a guest. I have invited Chris along because she is a CSA activist, it's child sexual abuse activist, and she's an incredible human being. And in today's show, we talk about trauma and different ways to recover from trauma. And I have been interested in trauma myself for the last few years. I don't think anybody gets through life without experiencing some sort of trauma, and it can be capital T trauma like Chris has experienced, or small t trauma. People dying is trauma. Not getting a hug when you should have got a hug, and how your body has responded to that. Somebody saying something that maybe wasn't appropriate at a time, and how your body's responded to that, how your nervous system has responded to it. This is a really lovely conversation. I am so inspired by Chris and very, very grateful that she has joined me on today's show. I did lose Wi-Fi at one point, so I dropped out the call. Chris, in her professional level, continued on talking, and then I managed to eventually get back in, and we restarted, and hopefully it's all seamlessly stuck together. If you listen to this podcast and have any questions, please check the show notes to see how to get in contact with either myself or Chris. Send any questions through that you might have. If you listen to this and know somebody that needs to hear it, can you please share it with them? If you don't already follow the podcast, can you please follow? It's the only way that the podcast can grow and other people can learn about how to be a healing rebel. I hope you enjoy this show. Like, share, follow, all that stuff, and let us know what you think. Welcome to the I Am Jen Wilson podcast. I Am Jen Wilson Healing Rebel podcast. Today I am delighted to have Chris Tuck on, who is a CSA activist. Now I don't know if Chris actually knows this, I have known about Chris and of Chris since about 2012. I've just been aware of you in the industry, and I've kind of dipped in and out, and when I've been on social media, sometimes I see your stuff, sometimes I don't. And we are in the same business mentoring group, and I've thought, people who I want to share stories, and I know that you've done a lot of work recently in sharing your story and bringing things forward, that I wanted to have a wee chat with you. So Chris, thank you so much for giving me some of your time today. Why not introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Jen. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Any platform that offers to speak to other people about their lived experience to help other people, I applaud. So thank you very much. I came out as a survivor in 2012 when I published my autobiography about my earlier life and the abuse that I'd gone through throughout my whole childhood, and about the impact that had on both my mental and my physical health. And being a health and wellness coach from the age of 33, after I had my second child, I felt it was really important to turn up as my authentic self, i.e. someone that had gone through all of this horrific stuff as a child and teenager, was being impacted by the trauma of all of that abuse, and was living daily with that impact, and to share that from a really honest and open position, so that I didn't have to wear that mask anymore, because that mask of having the perfect life, being the perfect wife, being the perfect whatever was exhausting, and I didn't want to be pretending to be something that I was not. So that was a really liberating moment for me. Also scary, also really, oh my God, how are people going to perceive me now? How are people going to treat me? How are people going to judge me? Because I've literally opened up my soul, shone a light in, and how was I going to then be seen? Because I had spent, Jen, 12 years of my life from, well, not even that, longer than that, from the age of 16 when I left home to be on my own in the big wide world. I put a mask on, and basically no one knew about my younger self. No one knew about what I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis behind closed doors. No one got to see that, because I felt at the time that if I shone a light on that and showed people my imperfections, my true self, that they wouldn't want to know me, and that they would feel that I was weak, or they would have these other ideas about me that I didn't want to portray. So I turned up in the world as, you know, a person that had all of their SHIT, because I don't want to swear, together, and I was happy, healthy, and that, you know, yeah, I just didn't want to show how I truly was feeling and thinking, because I thought that I would not be accepted, and I felt that I would be really judged. And I think I was also protecting myself from all of the stuff that I'd gone through and the hurt that it actually caused me. And I just didn't want anybody to pity me, feel sorry for me. I wanted people to respect me for who I was at that point in my life, which was a qualified chartered management accountant, a mum, a wife, someone that had everything together and could go places because of what I had achieved in my own right. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Like, and I think, like, I've read quite a bit in the last few years about trauma, and I don't, we're not able to deal with it until we're ready to deal with it. And at
Correct.
16, there's no way you would have had the life skills or the emotional intelligence to be able to start to process it. So can I ask, what was that catalyst that got you to write that book in 2018?
So I wrote the book in, I think, 2011, and we published it. I self-published it in 2012. So what was the catalyst for that? Big question. I was sick and tired of not being able to be myself. That was it. And at that time, I was doing a lot of work on becoming a coach, health and wellness coach. And I was doing a lot of Dax Moy courses, which was talking about the authentic self and being you. And, you know, if people get to know the real you, they love, like, and trust you, they will work with you, they will buy your services, you know, all of that that we was being taught at the time. And I just thought, no, if people know the real me, no one would want to come near me, no one would want to work with me. Why would they? So all of that self-doubt and all of that perception that I had about myself because of what I'd gone through, you know, all of that abuse, especially the sexual abuse that I'd endured as a child, the labeling that I gave myself, and a lot of labeling that victim and survivors give themselves, you know, if anyone knows the true me, I've got lots of shame, there's lots of guilt, there's lots of lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem. If people know the true me, they won't like me, they won't want to work with me. So there was a lot of inner battles going on with my own self-worth, because, you know, this mask and this presentation I had with the world at that time, no one knew about all of that angst within me. They knew about this strong, confident woman that knew her stuff, that could help people move on with their lives, da 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 da. They knew that. If I showed this, the authentic self, would they really want to work with me? Would they really want to be my friend? Would they? Would they? Would they? It was all of these doubts that were creeping in. And one day I just thought, you know what? I'm exhausted by all of this. I just am. I am going to come out as my authentic self. I'm going to show my pain. I'm going to show the way that I dealt with all of that pain. And I'm not going to be embarrassed or shamed or anything else about it. That's my truth. That is my reality. You either like it, not like it, you take me for what I am or not. That's none of my business anymore. My purpose is about showing up in the world as the true me, warts and all. But the catalyst of all of this was that, but it was also making sure that I didn't have to wear that mask anymore. And it was so it was very scary and fearful, but it was also very liberating, because since I've done that book and published it, I've literally for the last 13 years, 2023, 13 years, yeah, been my truthful and authentic self. And I don't have to, I'm always professional, even if I want to swear, even if I want to agree with everything. I'm very professional in how I put my views out there, but I don't hold nothing back anymore. And I try and encourage two sides to every story kind of angle to everything that I want to have a conversation about. But I won't tolerate abuse. I won't tolerate bullying. I won't tolerate anyone picking on anybody or putting people down. So I can turn up as my authentic self in all of the work that I do, whether it be health and wellness or whether it's that I have opinions on certain things that are going on in the world. Whereas before, I would have been really scared to say my own true thoughts and feelings. But now, nah, I'm too old in the tooth for any of that.
So more recently, you have been involved in creating like the CSE activist work and creating, is it legislation?
Trying to create changes in legislation, yeah. So from the book and turning up into the world, talking about the impact of trauma on mental and physical health because of adverse childhood experiences, that led me into trying to find my new tribe, so to speak, people that were like me, people that were dealing with the same things, challenges in life. So I reached out to a charity called NAPAC, which is the National Association of People Abused in Childhood. And I wanted to know more about their work. I wanted to know how I could bring my insight, my expertise, and my value into the world, but in a way that nobody else was doing it. So being a health and wellness coach and learning about trauma and learning about its impact on me, its impact on other people, I got to know what services were out there for victims and survivors of childhood abuse, mental, physical, sexual, all three. I got to know what services were available, and then I got to know where I fitted in, where I could bring something different to the table. And for me, that was health and wellness. It was recovery through holistic means. Pardon? So that was bringing, oh, I think we've lost Jen, but I'll carry on talking anyway. So it was about bringing holistic recovery to the table. So for me, it was many victims and survivors, they deal with their trauma through taking drugs, through emotionally eating, through alcohol, because they just want to down-regulate the pain that they're in. So it's really important for me to make sure that the recovery means is more holistic, is more not harmful. It actually helps, it's beneficial to the recovery from trauma. So it was a way of stepping up to the table and bringing my expertise to that table. So it made me create a program that looked at mindset, that looked at nutrition, that looked at fitness, that looked at stress management. And we were able to then create a program, write a book. And I set up a charity in 2016 called Survivors of Abuse, where I used the book and I used that to create an 8-week course to enable victims and survivors to recover from the trauma from childhood abuse. So that's where I'm at the moment with that.
Okay, so I'm back. So thank you for your professionalism and keeping on going. What about how did you, well, let me try that again. Where did you get your support from? Like what sort of treatments, therapy, outreach, where did you go to get support on this journey of healing?
So for me, I didn't really know that I had gone through trauma as a result, or I was suffering from trauma as a result of what I'd gone through. I didn't know that. I only knew that I was struggling with life, and I didn't even know that the word struggle existed either. I just thought, this is life. Just get on with it. Get over it, get on with it. It wasn't until I had my first child and I had a what I would call a breakdown, but I call it a breakthrough. I was really suffering from flashbacks. I was suffering from anxiety about bringing up my child, even cleaning him after he did a dirty nappy. I had a thought spring into my head, am I abusing him? And it freaked me out. And I knew I wasn't abusing him, but something in me, that thought popped up and it freaked me out. So I went to my doctor and I went, I'm not coping. I am having these thoughts about, am I abusing my child, just cleaning him after doing a dirty nappy? And I don't know why that's coming up, and I'm not sleeping, and I've got all of this other stuff going on. I spoke about my bulimia as well in that appointment. And he said to me, were you ever abused as a child? And I'm like, yeah. Big time, throughout the whole 16 years of my childhood, by different caregivers and by people outside of the family home as well. So he said to me back then, when was that, 1999, 2000, anyone that's gone through childhood abuse will feel and think the same as what you are. So when he said that, it was like a bomb going off in my body. I'm like, what do you mean? This is normal? And he said, well, it is normal, these thoughts and these feelings. He said, I think you need counselling. So he referred me to 6 weeks of counselling, because that's all you got. And I know from 20 years in recovery now and going through different forms of therapy that 6 weeks is harmful. Yeah. For people recovering from trauma from childhood abuse, especially sexual abuse. It doesn't even give you enough time to build up trust with your therapist. And for you to reveal your deep, darkest thoughts, feelings, experiences to someone, there has to be trust there. So 6 weeks is not even enough time, as I said, to build up that trust. And if someone who is not experienced in trauma thinks that they can fix someone in 6 weeks, they're in the wrong job, and they're causing more harm to that individual that's sitting in front of them. So anyway, I went along to this 6 weeks of therapy because that was what was available to me at the time. And all I did, Jen, was sit there and cry the whole 6 weeks. I couldn't speak. I just cried. But that for me was probably the best therapy that I could have had at that time, because I never cried, because that was seen as a weakness. And if I did cry as a kid, I got more abuse to shut me up. So that was reinforced within my whole life as a child and teenager, that you don't show your emotions. So that was deeply driven down within me. So the fact that I was able to cry in that safe space for 6 weeks, even though it didn't help fix the trauma or address the trauma that I knew nothing about at that time, it gave me that space to just, for my body to release some of that deep stuff. So fast forward, I had quite a few, 2 or 3 6-week sessions to deal with trauma that I didn't know I had, but to deal with the symptoms of what I was presenting. So that is what unfortunately the NHS is set up to deal with symptoms and not causes, because it is cheaper to do it that way, and also then they don't need to really address the deep stuff that's going on. But I've had 6 weeks worth of trauma, not trauma, counselling services, just counselling services. I've had CBT, I've attended art therapy, I've attended meditation. I've done so much in my recovery journey, and each bit that I've done has helped me in some way. But the biggest bang for my buck in my recovery was the therapy that I've just had, that I finished February this year, and I did it for over a year, and it was trauma therapy. It was the EMDR, the eye movement desensitization therapy, and that enabled me to get rid of some deep rooted, deep seated anger that I never knew I had, but it was there and it was affecting me in my everyday life. And I've done podcasts about all of that, Jen, because it needed to be spoken about more in depth. You know, as a society, we're not allowed to show anger. All right, we're just not. It's just not acceptable. But if we're not able to express how we are feeling for what we're going through, especially if it's bullying, abuse, and all that kind of thing that's being perpetrated against you, if you're not able to speak about it and you are dealing with the impact and it's driven deep down, one day you're going to explode, take it out on other people, or you're going to implode. You're going to take it out on yourself. So throughout my life, looking back with hindsight, you can see a lot of this implosion, the bulimia, the self-harm, the emotional eating, the perfectionism, the forever working and not being able to relax and enjoy life. You can see it throughout everything that I've ever done and how I've lived my life. And other people will resonate with that too. Even now, when I don't need to be working all of the time, I feel guilty when I have downtime. So what I'm trying to do is recalibrate my life and bring more balance into my life by allowing myself to have time out, time off, but I find it really difficult to relax. So about the therapy, I think everybody, we're all different, and we should all try these different kinds of therapies and see what works for us, because there isn't one program, one type of therapy that will fix every single person. And I don't even believe that we can be fixed. We will just live with and improve upon our daily life as much as possible.
And I think, like, I've been in and out of therapy myself, not for anything like what you've been through. And I think different therapies work at different times. And it is a bit of dipping in and out. Maybe looking at people from afar. Like, one of the benefits to social media now is therapists being able to show you who they are before you go in the room, so you can start to build up a wee bit of that maybe trust before you go. And then it's what am I feeling drawn to, what do I feel like might be a benefit. So I've done NLP, hypnosis, I've done psychedelic therapy, I've done talk therapies, I've done Campbell, like loads of different modalities, journaling, then doing the morning pages, all those sorts of things, and just seeing what you feel drawn to, where do you feel like you have trust, and knowing as well, because I was talking to somebody about going to therapy recently, it's like, do you not think that this might help, like, you get back, as they're dealing with a lot of social anxiety, and what they're scared of is what they might have to talk about when they get in the room with the therapist. And I'm like, but you don't have to share anything.
No.
You share what you feel right and what comfortable, and a good therapist will be able to gauge that from how you're responding. Like, a good therapist will be able to read your body language, understand just from the way you speak, the words you use, all of that, if they've got the experience, they will be able to hold the space for you in an appropriate
Yeah.
way, right for you in that moment. And then once you've completed that course, that program, or once you feel like that's not right for you anymore and you move to the next thing, it's not that that didn't work. It worked for what it needed to work for, and then you go to something else. It's the same, I think it's the same with diet and exercise.
Yeah,
You do what
exactly.
for you in that phase of your life. And then when you start to change and grow, you might outgrow that program, you might outgrow that whatever, and then you'll move on to the next thing. And it is this constant evolution, constant journey of, I think, exploration.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really important to know that if something's not working for you, i.e., if you were my therapist and if we didn't get on, it's really important to know that you can say, this is not working for me, and go and find someone else that does work for you. So it's a bit exactly like you said about health and wellness coaches, like we are. You know, we are those people. If someone doesn't like me, they could gel with you, and there's nothing wrong in that. You know, it's horses for courses. Find what works for you, empower yourself, and spend more time and energy in what is working for you, and don't stay in something that is not working for you, because you don't need to.
Yes. Yeah. And I use that kind of theory of life, like when I'm teaching yoga, like there'll be points where you're like, oh, this isn't really comfortable, but understanding this just needs a bit of work, and what, no, this is not right for me, because
Mhm.
therapy is not comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
let's
Oh, no.
or give any illusion that when you meet the right therapist, everything's going to be wonderful. It is
It's
horrific.
hard work, isn't it? Even if you know you need it and you've got to see it through, it is not comfortable. It's hard work.
But it's so worth it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Weight coming off your shoulders,
Yeah.
like that, just feeling like you're able to breathe. Like you're saying, you're still working on finding ways to relax. I'm in a similar place. I'm like, I'm not good at relaxing, but I am much better than I was.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Same here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. With your, like, so you've experienced bulimia, emotional eating. Did you have any other like health implications manifest?
Yeah, for me, because I don't know if you've ever read The Body Keeps a Score by Professor Van der Kolk. Yeah. If other people don't know about that book, they need to get hold of it and need to read it. Because that just blew my mind, and it made me understand exactly how deep-seated the trauma is within my body and how locked away it was for so long. I've had 2 hip replacements. Because you know the psoas muscle is the emotional home for emotions you're holding on to. And I know, looking back with hindsight, the emotional times in my life, the highly stressed out times, I literally can feel my psoas muscle lock down. And when I try and stand up, I can't. My posture's all shortened. I can't walk. I'm more immobilized. So it has that much effect on me personally. And the way that I've coped with my trauma over time is that I used to do a lot of high impact exercise, used to do a lot of running for long amounts of time, um, to release this anger energy that I always had within me. Always felt amazing afterwards, but I was in fact harming myself through, or punishing myself through, exercise, and I didn't realize it at the time. But the health implications of that, I'm now 53, is 2 hip replacements, along with malnutrition as a child and everything else that went on. But 2 hip replacements and a lot of mobility issues. So when I did come out as my authentic self, i.e., I could talk about anything and everything connected to what I've been through and the impact, I was able to release a lot of that tension that I held on to, that I didn't know about. And I was able to address my mental and my physical health conditions. So I don't particularly like labels, because I think that some people can think about those labels and it defines them as a person, and it reduces their potential. Just my opinion, it
Yeah.
reduces their potential. However, when you are within the statutory health system, the NHS, they work with labels, and if you don't have a label, you don't get the help. It's simple as that. So it's a bit of a you know, a catch-22 situation. So last probably 18 months ago, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, depression, anxiety. Now, speaking to me, you wouldn't know that. You just wouldn't, because that's not how I present. Um, However, I do have those issues, but to me, they're labels for the NHS to get the help that I needed. But for me as a person, no, they're not me. They don't define me. They're not going to limit how I turn up and what I'm going to achieve, because it's just not going to happen. Because if that did happen to me, I wouldn't have achieved what I've already achieved. So for me, it's really important that if we do get diagnosed with something, to know that that's not you in your entirety. You can go out there and achieve your aspirations, whatever they happen to be. Yeah.
That's so I have Crohn's and endometriosis, and I wrote that these are the labels that the NHS give me so that they can give me this
Yeah.
consultant and this and this that. And I got referred. I had to ask to be, but I got referred to the Centre of Integrative Care, which is part of the NHS. They don't have. They've only, I think, got 2 or 3 centres around the whole UK. Luckily, one of them is in Glasgow, and I went for a week course they send you on. And one of the first thing that they said is, you're not your disease. That's something that you've been told that you're experiencing, but that's not who you are. Like, in
Yeah.
integrative care, we're really, really strong in that. So we're not here to talk about your symptoms. We're not here to talk about all those labels that you've been given outside. We're here to talk about how can we support you
Yeah.
to live.
Yeah. That's
And I'm,
brilliant.
why is the rest of the NHS not operating on this same model?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, but that's the system that we're working in.
Yeah.
But then people like ourselves that are championing for you being the autonomous, wonderful human being that you are. How can we help support you on your journey?
Yeah.
How can we help you take the next step so that you can feel more authentically yourself? You can let go of the labels, still accept that there are symptoms that need to be managed. We can't ignore the fact that you've got 2 new
No, you
hips.
can't. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
There are days I can't leave the house because of fatigue, or I have to go to the toilet 20 times or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These are realities of life, but I don't need to be the patient of
Yeah.
beds.
Yeah, it really is a mindset thing, and it can really affect how you live your life if you think you are just your disease and you are confined by your symptoms. It is about learning how, it's about empowerment and learning how you can manage those symptoms, deal with those symptoms, and explain what's going on for you, but still trying to achieve whatever it is in your life,
Yeah.
whatever that happens to be, because it's going to be different for everybody. Yeah.
You are such a wonderful human being and such an inspiration. And I remember, so the first time I ever saw you speak was at Lucy Johnson's. She had a business thing,
Ah, yes, yes,
and
yes.
you were on stage talking about, I can't remember what it was, but and I remember, I don't know why, you out of, I think she had 6 or 8 people on the stage that all spoke. You're the only one that I remember. Sorry to those other people.
Oh, bless you, Jen. Thank you.
Well, there was obviously something about you, and then obviously over the years we've ended up paths are
Yeah,
crossing again. So just quite an incredible journey. I know you've got to dive off because you've got a wee appointment to get to, so I'm just
yeah,
making all of your time. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing this part of the journey. And if we want to come back on again and have another
yeah,
chat,
that'd be fine. Yeah,
I'd love to have you back on again.
that's great. And maybe in between, after people, your listeners have listened to this, they can have some questions that they want answered. That would be amazing.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. So send either whenever people are watching or listening to this, if there's an opportunity to comment underneath the YouTube video, I don't know if Spotify or whatever has a place to leave comments, or send me a message. All the
Yeah,
what I'll do is I'll get you to send me over all your contact details for
yep,
social media and everything, and we'll put them into the show notes so that people can easily get in touch with either of us.
lovely.
All right.
Fabulous. There's so much more we can talk about, but at least it gives people an idea of both of our journeys, and a little bit about therapy, and a little bit about, you're not your disease and you can achieve in life. And I think that's really a fantastic message to send out.
Yeah, yeah, there are options.
Yes, definitely. All right. Thank you, Jen, very much for inviting me. And I look forward to meeting and speaking again.
Yes. All right. Take care. I'll see you soon.